What's Brown? I think this is like my first live in like over a month. And the last time I went was like post UFC 312, like the Monday after. So that would have been February 10th, I believe. And now it's April 1st. Did you guys hear the news? Valentina Shevchenko out of UFC 315 and Zhang Wei Li stepping in to fight Manon Fiorot. That's going to be a pretty big fight. And then if Wei Li wins, and she goes on to fight Valentina Shevchenko later on in the year. And then that kind of leaves the strawweight title up for grabs because Whaley did say if she moves up, then she's got to vacate her title. That's what the UFC told her. But you know the funny thing about this news is that it's April 1st. What's up, No Filter? A funny thing about me breaking this news on April 1st means that it's actually not true. April Fools. But that would be cool though. I mean, if Valentina pulled out, I mean, she never pulls out of fights. I mean, she only did once when she was supposed to fight JoJo Wood. Um, but I mean, man, if she did pull out of the Manon Fiorot fight, I mean, Whaley's not a very active fighter, but this would be a huge opportunity, hypothetically, for her to step in, fight for an interim title. Mannon's been out for a year, so I doubt they'd reschedule it or keep her waiting even longer. They'd have to give a replacement. Like maybe they would do Natalia Silva versus Mannon if that happened, but then who would Grasso fight? So that would be very tricky if Val were to pull out. I think it would be way easier for the division if Manon pulled out. I mean, hopefully none of them get injured because I just want to get that fight over with. I'm not letting my hopes up to too high. I'm not getting my hopes up too high for Dana White. Dana White's huge announcement. I know everybody is expecting some huge announcement like Jones versus Aspinall. Yeah, he's not going to announce that. Um, but who knows? With everything that's going on in the lightweight division, WAIT, weight, because they're waiting around, it's possible we could finally get some news and confirmation with what's going on. I mean, maybe we'll finally get a lightweight title fight going. Hopefully, it's not Justin Gaethje against Islam. I hope it's Ilya Topuria. Just get that shit over with. Or Ilya versus somebody. I don't care. Um, the division just has to get moving. Like enough is enough. And then Ian Gary posted to his Instagram saying new knockout incoming. Who do you guys think I'll be knocking out next? Hashtag news. And Jeff Neal just pulled out of UFC 314. Now I know they're saying that Prates is not staying on the card, which is BS. They could just give him a late replacement. But this leaves an open possibility for a matchup between Shavkat Ratmanov, or sorry, not Shavkat. What am I saying? I mean Ian Gary and Carlos Prates. Could you imagine that? I mean, it should be on 14, but whenever it happens, I'm looking forward to it. But in that case, I wonder what new matchup they're going to put on 314. Are they going to move Piper versus Gastelum to that card, or are they going to move one of these preliminary bouts to the main card? Um, what up, BJ? Okay. Torin, what happened to your Instagram account? I noticed it's not there anymore. I think he's gonna announce Oliveira versus Taporia and maybe Holloway versus Poirier. Yeah, I mean, I heard that's the direction the UFC is headed in anyway. I've heard that Oliveira Taporia is like rumored for International Fight Week, but then Charles Oliveira is saying he wants a title shot for that date. Ilya's saying he's preparing for either Islam or Oliveira. And Benil Dariush said, I mean, I guess he's got the inside scoop saying the UFC is trying to make the Holloway versus Poirier fight. And I guess that'll go down in Lafayette, Louisiana. Or there's like another place where Dustin is from where I think he wants his retirement fight to be in, and it's not in Louisiana. Let me check. Dustin Poirier Um, where was he born? Let me look up his birthplace. I know he lives in Louisiana, but oh, so it was Louisiana. Okay, I don't know why I had another location in mind. But I mean, Dustin did say that he only wants to fight legends, and it seems like if it's not going to be the Gaethje trilogy, and Gaethje said that neither of our families deserve that, it might have to be Max Holloway. And I mean, that's not the matchup I want, but if that's what has to be, then it has to be. I mean, I'm not opposed to an Oliveira title shot. I mean, he should have had this energy when he pulled out of UFC 294. Instead of being like, I'll just fight anyone and being open to taking the risk against Arman Sarukian, he should have said, no, I want the Islam fight. He should have stood on business then rather than doing so now. Because now I don't think it's going to work in his favor. If he would have been more, I guess, assertive in defending his title shot that he pulled out of prior, the UFC might have booked Islam versus Oliveira 2 for UFC 302 in June in Newark, New Jersey, but he decided to fight Arman and he lost. And it sucks how that worked out because then Arman Sarukian beat Charles just to not show up to the Islam fight, and now they're not going to reschedule that fight. And Arman versus Islam 2 is easily more interesting than Oliveira versus Makhachev 2. And what sucks is we're not even going to get either. It's either going to be Gaethje, which is BS, or they're gonna make the Ilya fight. Um, and I mean, yeah, I guess Oliveira is not deserving, but if you compare him to Gaethje, who would you rather see get the title shot, Charles Oliveira or Gaethje? Personally, I would go with Oliveira. He's the second highest ranked contender outside of Gaethje. I could care less if it's a fresh matchup for Islam. It still doesn't interest me. Oliveira was already booked for a title fight rematch with Islam. He pulled out. They didn't reschedule it. He did the UFC a favor by taking the Arman fight at 300 and then took a fight with Michael Chandler in a rematch that didn't make sense when he didn't have to. Lost to Arman. He beat Chandler again. I feel like a title shot could be the most viable option, more so than Gaethje. But if not, the fight to make should be Max Holloway. But I mean, if they're gonna give Max Dustin, let's see. Then maybe they'll have to do Oliveira Arman too. But Oliveira is saying he doesn't want Arman. I mean, no one seems to want Arman, which kind of sucks because Arman's like the odd man out, number one contender who won't get a title shot, but no contender behind them wants to get through him to get a title shot, and I wonder why. I think maybe they know Arman Sarukian is a bad matchup for them. And I could see why Oliveira doesn't want to rematch Arman, but wants Islam. Because he knows that Arman is a bad matchup for him and beat him last time. And even though he had a few moments, a few glimmers of hope and success, that fight's not a guaranteed win. I mean, Islam is even less of a guaranteed win than Arman, but it's for a title. It's more worth the risk if there's a title on the line. Whereas if there's nothing on the line, why even bother fighting Arman? So I kind of get where Oliveira's coming from. Justin Gaethje doesn't get the next title shot either. They need to rebook Hooker. Yeah, I've been saying that. I've been saying the UFC needs to reschedule that fight. That's like the most logical matchup you could go with right now. I mean, I know Gaethje's probably not going to want it, but they need to rebook it. Like, here's how I would match make the lightweight division. So, just give Ilya the goddamn title shot. Just give him the title shot at lightweight. That's what he moved up for. He said the UFC promised him it. Him vacating the featherweight belt would be for nothing if he doesn't get a title shot. Um, Islam Taporia, uh, Oliveira Holloway, Gaethje Poirier 3, Hooker versus the winner of well, damn, I was gonna say Hooker versus the winner of Chandler Patty, but now that I think of it, if Dustin and Justin fight and Max fights Charles and Ilya gets the title shot, Then it should be Dan Hooker versus Armin Tsarukyan, actually. Never mind. That's what I think should happen. I don't care to see Poirier Gaethje again. I wonder why though, because they're 1-1. I think it would be pretty interesting, and Dustin Poirier was doing pretty well until he got kicked in the head. And I still believe he's the better fighter than Gaethje, regardless of what happens. And I kind of like to see if Gaethje could shut me up and prove me wrong, or if Dustin could prove what I've been saying this whole time. Because I was confident that Poirier was going to beat him again going into UFC 291. And I was very frustrated when he got knocked the fuck out by that head kick. I'm like, damn it, man. And everyone was picking Gaethje too. And I'm like, how do these guys even end up right? It felt like Dustin was the more logical pick. Like, Gaethje literally had no other way of winning that fight other than the head kick. He wasn't going to knock out Poirier with his hands. He's not the better boxer than Dustin Poirier. Poirier is just so much better than Gaethje. I just know it. And Gaethje just went for a Hail Mary head kick and it worked. And that's what annoys me. So I'm kind of glad Max Holloway slept his ass afterwards. Because I do think Gaethje is a little overrated. I mean, he's good, but Gaethje's kind of weird, though. I mean, he has those fights where he really underperforms, and then he has those fights where he really overperforms. But hopefully they reschedule the Dan Hooker fight. That is 100% the fight to make. And I mean, another option you could do with the lightweight division is you could rebook Dan Hooker versus Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje, and then you could do Dustin Poirier versus Max 3, and then Charles Oliveira, if he doesn't get a title shot, he might have to take the risk and fight Armin Tsarukyan. He might just have to suck it up, and Ilya gets the shot. Or Ilya fights Armin or Charles, and whoever of the two don't fight Ilya fights Islam for the belt. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe tonight Dana White will sort out this whole mess in the lightweight division, and we'll probably have a clearer picture of what's next. But speaking of what's next in a title picture, we also have the flyweight division too. We saw Brandon Moreno beats Steve Erceg last week, and I didn't do a prediction video on that fight, but I knew Brandon Moreno would win that fight. But I mean, there's rumors that Pantoja might either fight Kyuji Horiguchi or whatever his name is, because I know Kyoji or whatever his name is resigning with the UFC sometime soon. But I don't think he should get a title shot. I think they should do Kyoji should fight, or Horiguchi should fight Brandon Moreno in Guadalajara, and I think Brandon Royval, Manal Cop, that should be rescheduled. And I think Kai Kara-France should get his title shot at Alexandre Pantoja. I think that makes more sense, or makes the most sense to do in the flyweight division. I mean, you could give Kyuji Horiguchi the title shot, but I mean, why would you? Why would you give another guy making his UFC debut a title shot? Another Japanese guy making his UFC debut a title shot. We already saw how that went with Kaya Zakura. Now I know Horiguchi has been in the UFC before, but this would be like his first UFC fight in years. I'd like to see Horiguchi set his foot back in the top 10 of the division and get a top 10, top 5 win before fighting for the title. It's also a fresh matchup, Gaethje Hooker. I totally agree. And that fight would have been absolute chaos, man. I remember the night before it got canceled, I was practicing my breakdown and prediction of the fight. Yo, what's up, Jamil? I was rehearsing and I was going to pick Gaethje. I was thinking of reasons as to why and how Gaethje's going to beat Hooker. but was going to consider reasons for Dan. But then when Dan pulled out and then Fiziev got the shot, I'm like, yeah, Gaethje's going to beat him again. Um, Call me crazy, but I got Chandler beating Patty. That's not crazy at all. I don't think that's a crazy take. I mean, who's the favorite in that fight? Is Patty the favorite? I gotta check the odds for that matchup. If it does feel like Michael should win, and honestly, right now I don't really have a pick for that fight, but I could see Patty winning, and Patty probably will win. But I mean, Chandler could absolutely beat Patty Pimblett. He's got the experience. He's fought more top guys. He's been in more wars, more battle tested. He's got the power advantage, the explosiveness advantage, superior wrestling. Patty Pimblett, good BJJ, but Michael Chandler, anti jujitsu, solid submission defense. He could 100% win this fight. He's got good pressure. We've seen Patty Pimblett kind of fade under pressure and get backed up against Tony Ferguson. And Chandler could have the success that Tony did, but because he's not washed completely like Tony, he might be able to win entirely. But with that being said, Patty Pimblett, he's got plot armor. And Michael Chandler is older. He's not in his prime anymore, and his age really showed in his last fight. He showed a massive decrease in takedown defense and get up ability. Oliveira surprisingly was able to have his way with him in the wrestling department and control him on the ground. Um, and I would think Patty Pimblett's a more technical striker than Chandler too. I think Chandler is having a bit of a decrease in speed. Now, the last thing to go is power. So Chandler's still going to have that power. That's going to be a threat to Patty Pimblett. But Patty, he also has some power of his own. And like I said, he's got plot armor, and Michael Chandler has poor fight IQ. So you combine both things, that might be in Patty's favor, but I could easily see a Chandler win. But I'm gonna check these odds for the fight. Let me just look up UFC 314 ESPN. I think ESPN might show the odds of the fight. Um, yeah, Chandler's a plus 135 underdog. Damn. But I need to do a little more tape study ahead of that fight, and then I'll decide a prediction. I had a dream and could happen. It could definitely happen for sure. Because Patty Pimblett does crack. He can crack, does, can, same thing. Let's just look at Patty's record though. How many knockouts does he have? Because I know Patty, he's more of a submission guy, but I mean he does have power too. And Chandler is a bit chinny. I think Patty's got 6 wins by knockout and 10 subs. But he could definitely catch Chandler because Chandler's very open when he goes forward. When Chandler's first and aggressive, he does leave himself vulnerable to getting caught. And it's very possible that Patty could land something. But if Chandler loses this fight, like, he's got to hang it up. He's got to retire. Like, losing to Pimblett would be so bad for Chandler's stock, so bad for his legacy, especially for a guy who's like obsessing over the Conor fight that will never happen. If he loses, it 1000% is never going to happen. I mean, it's already never going to happen, but he's got to get Conor's name out of his mouth if Patty Pimblett beats him, because at that point you're not worthy of calling out Mystic Mac. Patty has poor fight IQ, especially on the feet. Um, I don't know about that. I mean, Chandler makes more mistakes in his fights than Patty, from what I've seen. I mean, look at his fight with Poirier. Like, he tried in the third round when he went for a takedown. He tried to be extra by lifting Dustin in the air, which was a complete waste of energy. And then because of that, Poirier, who's pretty heavy and big for the division, fell on top of Chandler and ended up taking his back, and then it got him subbed. Everyone talks about Chandler's power, but he ain't dropped anyone with the so-called overhand since the start of 2021, right? That's actually true. The only man he's like dropped was Dan Hooker. That was the only man he actually stopped like that. And then even when he knocked out Tony, I mean, it wasn't with his hands. He couldn't even hurt El Kukui, washed up El Kukui with his hands. He only could finish him with his foot, but that was like a shock out of nowhere, out of the blue kick that we've never seen Chandler go for before, which is so annoying because Tony was actually about to win that fight and he just had to get caught by that fucking kick. Um, I mean, he did hurt Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier with his hands, but he couldn't drop them. And I mean, even when he hurt Oliveira in like both fights, he didn't really drop Charles. Like Charles Oliveira in the first fight he kind of crumbled to the ground a little bit against the cage. He went on his knees to avoid more damage. He didn't want to continuously get swarmed against the cage, but he didn't get dropped. He kind of just dived guard to recover. And then in the second fight, he got hurt and backed up after being poked in the eye, and then tried to clinch Chandler and pulled guard, but he didn't get dropped. So you're definitely right. And who knows if he'll just straight up chin Paddy Pimblett like that. I mean, that's his best chance to win. And if he doesn't, I could see Paddy just straight up outstriking Michael Chandler in there, piecing him up. And I mean, if it comes down to the grappling, if Michael Chandler wrestles, Paddy Pimblett's got good scrambles, and he can maybe find a submission. If I were Chandler, I'd fight Paddy the same way I fought Hooker. He was so patient in that fight. Yeah, patient, but lots of pressure. He definitely fought a great fight against he fought a great fight against Hooker, and I think that version of Chandler would most likely beat Paddy. But when you combine the factors of Paddy Pimblett is improving fight by fight, and Michael Chandler is getting worse with age and just fighting dumber and dumber each time we see him, it's making it harder for me to actually see him winning this fight. Even though earlier I said I'm not sure who will win, I feel like leaning more towards Pimblett. Um, we're getting closer to Manon and Val. Yeah, I can't wait for that fight. I'm actually very excited for UFC 315. Solid card, good main event. We got Bilal versus JDM, and then Shevchenko versus Manon, Grasso versus Silva, Aldo versus that Ariel Helwani lookalike, I think. And then I think they just added Joel Alvarez versus Benoit Saint Denis. Poor Saint Denis, man. He can't catch a break. And then, of course, who can forget Michael Morales versus Gilbert Dorino Burns? That's going to be a banger. Gary said he has fight news. I wonder if it's Gary versus Prates. I think it will be. I think it will be because Jeff Neal just pulled out. Who else are they going to give Carlos Prates? And they might as well just keep Carlos on the card. Even if, let's say, Ian can't make the weight on time, make it a catch weight or make them fight at middleweight for all I care. But I think they should keep it on the card because it'll make UFC 314 all that more exciting. And I mean, if that fight were to happen, that's interesting. I think Ian Gary could win that fight, honestly. Ian might be able to do what he did to MVP. We haven't really seen Carlos Prates' defensive grappling get tested, and we know that Ian Gary, as we learned against MVP, he does have pretty good, strong offensive grappling that he could use against Carlos. But also, I mean, we can't count out Ian on the feet either. Ian Gary is very solid on the feet too. I think Ian would be a very good test for Carlos Prates if that fight does go down. Hit the like button, Juice Man 562. Um, yeah, that makes sense to do Gary versus Prates, considering Gary actually lives in Miami. Exactly. And oh, that's true. UFC 314 is in Miami, so there you go. I really hope in that case the UFC reconsiders taking Carlos Prates off the card. That's just dumb. Why would you take him off the card? Keep him. Keep him. Unless you want to move him to Kansas City and maybe do Ian Gary versus Prates in Kansas City since Jamal Hill pulled out. Since everyone these days loves pulling out of fights, Dan Hooker, Jeff Neal, and now Jamal Hill, Joe Pyfer, it just doesn't stop. We poor MMA fans cannot catch a break. Practice's power is serious, though. It is. And Ian Gary can get caught. We did see what Song Kanan did to him. He dropped him. But since then, I mean, we haven't seen Gary get touched like that. I mean, I know Shavkat Rachmanov landed that like one good punch on him, but overall his defense remained very solid ever since getting dropped by Kanan. He was able to stay safe against Jeff Neal, but also Jeff was super hesitant in that fight, so that also could have been a bit of a factor, but he could make himself very tricky for Prates to catch clean. And if Prates doesn't land that one big shot, Ian Gary has a very solid chance to just outpoint him. If he's able to shut down that power, it could be a long night for Prates. Let's see. MVP Prates was interesting too. That would definitely be a good fight. I think that's definitely a fight I've actually been calling for a while. I don't know what's taking the UFC so long to make that fight. And I totally disagree about Michael Page being boring. I think Michael Page is a very exciting fighter. I think the only boring fights I remember of Michael Page was Ian Gary, but that's Ian's fault. And then the fight with Logan Storley and who's the other guy? Oh yeah, Paul Daly. I think whenever MVP's opponents take a grappling heavy approach and they're relatively successful with it, that's usually when his fights are pretty boring because the guys who grapple him don't want to take chances on the feet. And then MVP's has his hint worrying about defending takedowns. And then it just makes for like a super stale fight. And I remember that Paul Daly fight was so disappointing. I remember being like so excited for that fight. And that fight was like, what, years in the making? And then it finally happened. And, Paul talked all that crap just to hug MVP for 5 rounds. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not making fun of Paul or talking down his approach. He did what he needed to do to attempt to win the fight, but it just wasn't appealing to the audience. I was hurt when I got the news Hooker pulled out at 313. Me too, man. I was so hyped. And like I said, I was ready to give my breakdown and prediction for that matchup. I was rehearsing, and then like 7 a.m. in the morning, I hear, oh, Dan Hooker's out. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But I'm not surprised because it's Dan Hooker, and he's never consistently showed up to the octagon ever since the start of 2023. Do you guys remember when he was supposed to fight Jalen Turner at UFC 285? Because Gamrot wasn't Turner's original opponent. It was supposed to be Dan in March 2023. And then Dan broke his arm. They rescheduled it for UFC 290. Hooker wins the fight. Then they try to book Hooker versus Green. Hooker pulls out, and then Turner takes the Green fight. And then Dan Hooker doesn't fight again until August 2024, a year apart from the fight with Turner. They book him 6 months later against Gaethje, and of course he can't show up. It's almost like lately getting Dan Hooker to show up to 2 fights in a row is just too much to ask for, and it's like we can only get Dan Hooker once a year. But if they never reschedule that Dustin or that Gaethje fight for the rest of either man's careers, I'm going to be so disappointed. And Dan Hooker says that he's not going to be competing for much longer. He's going to retire at 40, but he's going to leave the UFC at 38 and compete in BKFC for 2 years. So Dan's going to be 38 in like what, 2028 or when is that? 2027? Whenever that is, that's very soon. So, and Gaethje's not going to fight much longer either. So I need this fight to go down. I need to see that barn burner. I don't care who wins. And I definitely think that would have been a better fight than the Rafael Fiziev fight. Like when Fiziev stepped in, I was not excited. I mean, it was a good fight, not as good as the first one, but I just knew it was not going to be as good as the Dan fight. But like I said earlier, I had Gaethje knocking out Hooker. They were going to get in a wild exchange, and Gaethje was going to land a deadly power punch and put him down. Likely, that's very likely. I mean, Dan definitely had a path to victory in that fight because Dan Hooker's got the height. Or actually, no. Does he have the height advantage? If Dan Hooker's 6 feet, then yes, he's got the height advantage. But if they're both 5'11", then I take that back. But Dan Hooker's got the reach. Dan Hooker can be elusive and technical when he wants to, like his fight against Al Quinta, and even earlier on against Paul Felder. Oh shit, Dana White already made some announcements? Damn, I gotta check this out. Um, but yeah, what was I gonna say? Earlier on against Paul Felder, he was like moving around the outside, keeping distance. Even against Ally Quinta, Al sits down his punches flat footed, power puncher, and Dan Hooker kept his distance. And even when he fought Nasrat Hasparak, he was very technical. It was kind of a boring fight, but he was able to shut down his power. But sometimes Dan Hooker does get sucked into that kind of brawl. Um, and I do feel like at some point in the fight, he probably would have got hit by Gaethje and tried giving it back, like he did against Poirier. And if he did make that same mistake, it's more than likely that Gaethje would have got him out of there because Gaethje is more powerful than Dustin Poirier as a puncher. So, I mean, Poirier's more accurate with his boxing, but if he's taking the shots he took from Dustin against Gaethje, it might be lights out. I mean, if Chandler could do that to him, Gaethje could certainly put him away. Hooker is only an inch taller than Gaethje. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, let me see if I can check this from my email. I mean, I could open. Hold on a second, because I know verdict notifications come in my Gmail. So let me, or I might have to look through Instagram, but I want to see what's announced because I can't open verdict from my computer. Um, let me see. Okay, I'm gonna go on Instagram and I'm going to see what Dana White has announced, but I'm gonna keep my volume low because I don't want to get copyright struck. Okay, so Sean O'Malley versus Murad Dvalishvili 2, where Murad it's just gonna be 5 rounds of the same thing. I'm not excited for this fight, man. What the hell? We did not need this fight, but okay. Um, and Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Oh no. My girl's about to get destroyed. I'm not looking forward to this. I'm not, dude. UFC 316 is gonna suck, man. That's gonna be so depressing. It's gonna be so depressing. Like if I were doing fight companions, you would just see like a depressed reaction from yours truly, DJC. I'm about to watch 5 rounds of Juliana Pena getting ragdoll, getting control on the ground in 50-45 by Kayla. Or you know what? Kayla might dominate most of the fight and then eventually submit her, kind of like what Brady did to Leon. And then O'Malley, Marab, it's just going to be the same thing. Like, what is Sean going to do differently? What is Sean O'Malley going to do differently? What is he going to do? What is he going to do? He can't stop the wrestling of Merab Dvalishvili. He can't stop the pace and pressure of Merab. And with the way Merab pressures and bounces around so frantically and maniacally, and also Merab does have deceptively good defense and surprisingly good formidable striking. I don't think O'Malley's going to be able to land that perfect shot. I picked Sean the first time these two were supposed to fight. I was very confident the first time. Actually, no, I take that back. I was not confident in Sean O'Malley, but I thought he'll be able to keep the distance. And I thought because he was able to defend Aljo's takedowns and Marab's takedowns aren't always that successful, I thought, okay, he'll show good takedown defense. He'll be able to keep his distance and time that long left hand, or is it his right hand that's his like power punch? But either way, I thought he was going to be able to land a big home run and get the finish. But seeing what I saw in that last fight and from what I learned, I just don't see what Sean can do to him. I mean, Sean is a better striker, but he can't deal with the wrestling or pace. Merab is a different animal. And I thought if anyone was going to beat the machine, it would be Umar. And not even Umar Nurmagomedov could do it. Not even Umar Nurmagomedov could do it. So I don't think O'Malley's going to be able to do it. And this is a big mistake by the UFC because O'Malley's their golden boy. He's their superstar. They should have given O'Malley a contender, a winnable fight. Why did they not make O'Malley versus Sandhagen or Peter Yan 2 matchups that he could actually win and redeem himself in? If O'Malley could have took another fight, a redemption matchup, and won, he doesn't lose stock, and then it actually adds more height to the Merab rematch because then maybe we could see tape on where O'Malley has improved and where his chances might lie against the machine the second time out. But the fact that that was already his last fight, 5 rounds of being dominated by a Merab, I just can't get myself to be excited for this fight. And they're really going to hurt Sean O'Malley's stock. Like, O'Malley's stock is going to drop by a lot because when he loses to Merab again, then what? What do you do with Sean O'Malley? He's going to have a legacy being known as Merab's son, essentially. It's almost like the same thing that happened with Cody Garbrandt. They shouldn't have given him an immediate rematch with TJ Dillashaw. And they did. He got destroyed again, and he was never the same, and he went irrelevant. And I fear the same thing might happen to Sugar Sean O'Malley. I think I think Peter Yan should have got the rematch because even though Peter Yan would lose again, he's earned it. Peter Yan earned his rematch with Merab because he's on a 2-fight winning streak. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. O'Malley is on a none-fight win streak. And I mean, is there any other options in this division that you could give him? Not really, because Figueiredo just lost. Corey just lost. They're fighting each other. You really could only give him either Song Yadong or Peter Yan 2. And I think they should have given him Yan, and maybe they could have done Song Yadong versus O'Malley. Maybe on the same card, but whatever. I'm going to try to peep these other announcements. And I'm also going to peep some of these comments too. Let me see. Merab, Sean, Pena, Harrison. Damn. Yeah, I knew Gaethje's chin wasn't going to be gone. I mean, that's why I knew Fiziev would lose again. Like people were saying that Gaethje was in trouble in that matchup, or they were worried for Gaethje because Max slept him. And Gaethje was the underdog, which literally made no sense. Like, I knew Gaethje's chin was not going to be gone. He took reasonable amount of time off. We've seen Gaethje get knocked out before twice in a row and come back just as durable as ever. He's going to be fine. Oh, shit. So, UFC Kansas City, they just announced Ian Gary versus Carlos Prates. Okay. Okay, that's another good fight. That is another good ass fight. Holy. Who is gonna win this one? Damn. I think Ian Gary could. Honestly, Ian Gary might win. It's 5 rounds. I mean, has Prates ever gone anywhere past round 3 before? Ian Gary, I was going to say he just fought for the title, but I just remembered it wasn't for an interim title against Shavkat, but he has 5 rounds of experience against the quote-unquote uncrowned champion Ratmanov, made it very competitive. He's got good cardio. He's got good grappling. Ian Gary's very good at neutralizing your offense and making it a stale fight, but it works in his favor. He's kind of like Sean Strickland in that way. He's more of a Strickland, of course, but the way he fights, the way he kind of neutralizes and frustrates his opponents, it is very Sean Strickland-esque, actually. So I got to think about this one. I got to watch a lot of tape, but for right now, I might lean Ian Machado Gary. I think it's a close fight. But I think Machado can kind of stall him out, make it stale, and actually show some experience. And maybe he fraud checks Prates. Ian Gary showed how good he was in that last fight against Shavkat Ratmanov. And I think this might be where the Prates train ends. Like if Carlos Prates was still fighting Jeff Neal, 100% I was confident he was going to knock out Jeff Neal. But Ian Gary, he could, but I don't think so. Man, and if I wasn't losing storage on my laptop, I'd be like doing screen record style videos, which I think are a lot easier for me than my voice memo recordings, but I can't do my screen recording news announcements. I got to go back to my voice memo recordings. Because I am currently on my placement for graduation. So I need to download a lot of videos for like editing and stuff. So I won't have enough storage to do my YouTube videos now, which sucks. So I guess by June I can go back to that original, not original, but that newer style I kind of picked up in December 2023. I'll probably start doing it again in June. But at the same time, I don't want to get rid of Premiere Pro. I could also use that for editing my YouTube videos. But I don't know. I might need to get a new storage hard drive in my laptop. We'll see. But I'm not done. I'm not done giving you guys content. Like either way, one way or another, you're gonna get DJC content regardless. UFC should strip John Jones and make Aspinall versus Gain or Jailton Almeida. I agree, but John Jones is one of the UFC's biggest names, biggest superstars, and he has too much privilege, too much Dana White privilege. Dana White literally allowed him to sit on his belt for a year and a half. A year and a half, they allowed him to still fight Stipe Miocic, which I mean, I can see why, because that was the fight that was already originally booked. It was a fight that was talked about for years. Um, Stipe was deserving in a way, just based off the fact that he's a former dominant heavyweight champion. If he was ever going to come back, the fight you should have always given him was a title fight. Um, but still, I mean, John Jones could have been stripped, and they could have just made Jones versus Miocic a non-title fight pay-per-view headliner, and then John could have just got a title shot at Aspinall to get the belt back. That would have kept the ball rolling in the heavyweight division. I mean, Dana White's out here saying if Bilal pulls out again, he's stripping him of the belt. Yuri and Jamal were forced to vacate, but not John Jones. So they're definitely not going to strip Bones Jones. Pena versus Kayla is a banger. No, it's not. It's gonna suck. The fight's gonna suck. And every time one of my women's MMA favorites loses, it's never close. They never give a good showing. It's always embarrassing, and they always get their ass beat. Do you ever notice that? It's always a 30-27 or 50-45 domination. The only women's MMA favorite of mine who lost the fight, but it was relatively close and they didn't get beaten that badly, it was Rose Namajunas against Carla Esparza. It was a close split decision, but still a bad legacy damaging loss because Rose did nothing for 5 rounds and lost the fight to someone who she should have easily beaten. And she could have easily added Esparza to her legacy, avenging that loss and having a win over every former strawweight champion. And she fumbled that. But that wasn't bad compared to Nunes versus Pena 2, or Nunes versus Aldana, or Holm versus Aldana, or Aldana versus Dumont, or Grasso versus Shevchenko 3. I mean, or Tatiana versus Whaley. Like, you can't make this stuff up. They always lose badly. And unfortunately, Juliana Pena is going to get completely domed by Kayla. Kayla's too big, too strong, superior wrestler, superior judoka, superior grappler slash jujitsu overall. And the thing I don't like about Juliana Pena is she's too comfortable being off her back, man. She's too comfortable fighting off her back. That's what I don't like about her. And every time I talk to like Pena fans, I'm a Pena fan. When I talk to other Pena fans and I mention how, man, her takedown defense needs work, they go, oh, well, she doesn't have good takedown defense because she likes fighting off her back. And it's like, so freaking what? You can have a good ground game, but being off your back is a waste if you can't submit your opponent. Having good jujitsu is nice, but it's also good to have good takedown defense as a safety net, or at least try to defend takedowns. If you just give up bottom position, you're not guaranteed to get a submission, and if you don't, you're gonna lose rounds. And that's the problem Pena ran into against Nunes, is she was accepting of the takedowns, allowed herself to be taken down, didn't focus on getting up, focused on trying to sub Nunes, and because of that, she was behind on the cards and got completely dominated. I mean, she was getting whooped on the feet too, but I mean, she would have had a chance in the stand up the longer the fight went, the more Nunes slowed down if they stayed standing, and if Pena focused on defense with the grappling, focused on getting up. It could have been a different fight or not. But against Kayla, if she thinks she can depend on fighting off her back and fishing for subs, good luck. I mean, either way, she's going to get taken down or ragdolled and destroyed. And I'm going to hate it. And I'm going to cry. I'm going to be upset. I'm already ready for the worst. I mean, I'm used to it at this point. I'm used to the heartbreaks and letdowns. I've seen it all. Like, nothing can surprise me anymore. I'm kind of numb. Like, even with Grasso in her upcoming fight, I'm picking her, but at the same time, I won't be surprised if she loses, and I'm ready for the worst. If Natalia somehow beats her up, that'll probably happen. And I know Kayla Harrison didn't look that good against Ketlen Vieira, so maybe that's one thing I could hold on to my hope for, but styles make fights. Ketlen Vieira is stronger than Pena, actually focuses on takedown defense despite having good jujitsu and has good takedown defense. So she wasn't that easy for Kayla to out grapple. She could almost match Kayla's physicality. With Pena, I think it's going to be a different story. Now, I think advantages that Juliana Pena has against Kayla is striking. I think Juliana's striking is way better than people credit her for. I mean, it might be sloppy, but she's way more comfortable scrapping and throwing down on the feet in comparison to Kayla Harrison. And if it is standing, Juliana will win. And then I also think Juliana has superior cardio to Kayla Harrison. That's what I think. And you know what? Maybe the fact that Kayla has to cut a lot of weight, maybe there's a chance she could have an off night or be completely hindered by the cut. And maybe that could give Juliana a chance if Kayla's weakened and depleted. But I don't know. I just think that even if Kayla slows down, she'll still be able to take down Pena and just lay on her. Either she's going to. Sorry, someone just called me. Sorry, I got called. Can you guys still hear me? Hope they didn't like ruin the live or anything like that. Um, damn it, where was I? I was talking about Harrison versus Pena. Damn. I think I think I was saying like Pena's chances are on the feet. Um, but she's not going to be able to keep it there, and maybe she can bank on Kayla fatiguing. That's what I thought. Uh, damn it, man. So annoying when someone just randomly calls you in the middle of your live. Anyway, that pisses me off. I was like cooking with my breakdown, but yeah, Kayla Harrison's gonna smash Pena. I think where I was getting at is either Kayla's gonna ragdoll her for a few rounds and then sub her, or she's just gonna like completely beat her up early and then gas out, but then just lay on her for the last few and just win a 50-45 comfortable decision. And boom, you have a new champion. And this will be twice that Pena will have not gotten a defense of her title. And that'll be unfortunate for Pena's legacy. Very unfortunate because that'll be very unfortunate for Juliana Pena's legacy because it's like both times she's won the belt, she's never been able to successfully defend it ever. And she's kind of been unlucky throughout her career because it's like each time she's had the belt, she's had a dangerous challenger to go up against. She's had to fight Nunes on her first defense, a more serious locked in Nunes who she had no even more impossible matchup than Nunes. But can you guys hear me? Like, did my call? Someone speak up. Can you hear me or not? Did my call mess up the audio or no? Because I don't want to have to start this over. Um, but yeah, your guess was right. Prates versus Gary. Jay Hill is going to be the high or the biggest what if in UFC history. Definitely, definitely. Hold on a second. Yo, somebody speak up and say if you can hear me or not. I'm just gonna have to play back my audio from the laptop. Um, a lot of injuries are killing Hill's career. I agree. It's frustrating. It's really annoying, especially because I like Hill. I do consider myself a fan of Jamal Hill. You know. Okay, good. My audio is working. Um, damn, that call really messed me up. But regardless, yeah, I agree. I agree. Jamal Hill had an amazing title-winning performance against Teixeira, and then he just had to get injured and then vacate the belt. And it's sad how that turned out. Like he never got a chance to put his belt on the line and rock the gold kit, the gold champ kit. I mean, I don't think he was ever going to defend the title, but who knows? Maybe if he didn't get injured and lose momentum and have to take all this time off, maybe he could have been a better version of himself against Yuri. Maybe he would have beaten non-head movement Yuri. Maybe he would have had a chance as a southpaw against Alex Pereira. You never know. But getting injured and then taking all this time off, being inactive, that didn't help. I mean, he tore his Achilles and then he injured his knee immediately after. Like, that sucks. And now he just recently pulled out of the Khalil fight, which is so annoying. I was really looking forward to that matchup, man. I was excited to see Hill back. I was excited to see if he could solidify himself as a top contender and prove he's not done against Roundtree. But Until that fight gets rescheduled, I guess we'll never know. But it does suck when injuries ruin fighters' careers. Like, this kind of reminds me of like Frank Mir back in the day where he became champion and then immediately he loses the belt because he got a motorcycle accident and then had to be stripped of the belt. And then he never won back the undisputed title. I mean, he won the interim title, I guess, which is nice, but never got the belt back. That is unfortunate. And I mean, at least with Yuri Prohaska's case, at least he's been winning fights since the injury. I mean, the only guy who's beaten him twice was Pereira. But then he's came back, beat Rakic, lost to Pereira, came back and fought Hill, and unfortunately, there could only be one who could come out on top, and that was Yuri and not Hill. And I picked Yuri to win that fight. Can you believe people are actually still trolling Hill on his Instagram? Like, he seemed to have moved on from Alex Pereira. He's spoken on the man. He hasn't spoken on the man for a while. Yeah, but fans are cruel, man. That's MMA fans for you. They're ruthless. And Jamal Hill kind of brought it on himself. I like Hill, but he brought it on himself, constantly bashing Pereira. Now, I understand it's his competitive fire, but he did a lot of salty coping after that fight. And that was annoying fans. And you combine that with Alex Pereira has a very toxic fan base. So we know them fans ain't going to take that very well. But it does suck though, because when Jamal like beat Glover and became champion, he had a lot of fans. A lot of people liked him. And it's kind of sad where his legacy is now because nobody respects his win over Glover, which is sad. People see his title win as a joke, like, oh, he fought for the belt, the vacant belt against the washed Glover, so it's not a good win. And with him losing to two non-washed fighters in a row, it almost seems like it proves these haters' points. And if the Roundtree fight could have happened, if he could have showed up and fought and beat Khalil, he could have beat the guy who fought better against Pereira and maybe proved the point there. Like, it's very unfortunate for Jamal Hill. Like, he needs redemption, but the more he continues to lose and get injured, the less likely that redemption is coming. Similar situation in the basketball world. Look at Derrick Rose. He suffered a lot of injuries. I do not watch basketball, but I do know what you're talking about. I have heard of the Derrick Rose situation. And I've heard, yeah, that did kind of screw up his career. I mean, injuries overall are so annoying. I mean, look at what they did to Dominic Cruz. I mean, Cruz is still the bantamweight GOAT, in my opinion, but his GOAT status could have been more solidified and secured and wouldn't be neck and neck with Aljo and soon to be Marab when he beats O'Malley and then beats someone else after that. If he could have been healthy and active, because Cruz would have at least got like, what, 9 defenses of his belt, I believe. He would have set a record that I don't believe any bantamweight of this current gen will be able to catch up to. Whereas 3 non-consecutive defenses, I'm sorry, but that's going to be easy for someone to surpass. I mean, Aljamain Sterling almost got there, but he didn't. I think Marab is going to at least get 4 defenses. I think he beats O'Malley. And then I don't know who Peter Yan's gonna fight. Like, what are they gonna do with Yan? I guess they'll do Peter Yan. Are they gonna give Song a rematch? Nah. They might do Umar Nurmagomedov versus Peter Yan, and then maybe they could do the winner of that versus Marab, but Marab will just win anyway. Or you know what? I actually think the winner of Sanhagen versus Figueiredo will get a title shot. And then I think they'll give Peter Yan Umar Nurmagomedov. But either way, none of these guys are beating Marab, and Marab might surpass Cruz as the GOAT, which again, if it wasn't for those injuries, it would be impossible for Marab to do so. Because where I do think he'll get 3, 4 defenses, there's no way in hell he'll get more than that. Because Marab is 34, age matters in these lower weight classes. Right now he's at his peak, but his peak isn't going to last any more than 2 to 3 years. And he's not going to reach the amount that I think Cruz would have got. And then Tatiana Suarez, there's another career ruined by injuries. If it wasn't for all those injuries, I believe she would have been the champion. And now, unfortunately, it's very possible that Tatiana will never be the champion. I think two things would have happened if she didn't get injured. I think she wins the belt, and I think she would have beat Zhang Weili if they fought a few years earlier. If Weili would have fought an active, healthier Tatiana Suarez with the momentum that she had, and before Weili had time to fully develop her wrestling skills, I think Tatiana would have beat her in 2019, 2020. And history might be different. Who knows if Weili goes on to become champion? Or maybe Tatiana wins the first one. Weili might win the rematch as she improves. But at least the title would have been a part of Tatiana's legacy. And now, unfortunately, I think the only championship she'll have ever achieved in her MMA career will just be the Ultimate Fighter trophy, which isn't enough. And Tatiana might even be forgotten, which sucks. Really bothers me. It's okay. Hold on a second. Look at Alex now. He lost at UFC 313. He's gonna lose the rematch too. Facts. It's a reason the UFC was protecting Alex from Magomed. They knew he couldn't win that fight. They were not confident. Yep, and they were trying to put the circumstances in Alex's favor against Magomed. They made this fight on Ramadan. They said Ramadan, take it or leave it, hoping that Ankalaev would be compromised. And then fans were saying that Ank's going to lose and then have excuses. But guess what? Magomed won, Ramadan or not, and now it's Alex Pereira and his fanboys who got the excuses. It's kind of funny how the tables turn. And I wish I picked Ankalaev for that fight. I wish I picked him. Because actually, Ankalaev was my initial pick. Like, for years, I had always thought that Ankh would beat Pereira. Like, before Pereira came to light heavyweight, Ankalaev was one of the many guys who I thought would beat Pereira at light heavyweight. And I was right, but when the fight became a reality and an announcement, I felt too afraid to go against Poatan because he was on such a dominant run, you know, beating guys the way he did, beating Yuri twice the way he did, Jamal the way he did, and Ankalaev not really having that many good wins despite the win streak. I just didn't feel that confident. I thought, man, Alex might surprise people with good takedown defense, which he did, but I thought with that being said, it would lead to it just being a striking match that I thought would favor Alex. But plot twist, it didn't matter. Ankalaev didn't even need the wrestling to win that fight. Yep, we saw Magomed was a bad matchup for Alex. They were basically forced to make Magomed Alex, and they had no other choice. Yeah, and you know what? You know what's funny is that Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria was originally planned for UFC 307 in Salt Lake City, Utah. And the UFC said they made Pereira versus Khalil because that card needed saving, because they moved Ilya versus Holloway to 308 because Islam was injured. But you know what they could have just done? Instead of giving Ankalaev just so dumb, they easily could have just made Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev headline UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. If they really wanted to save a pay-per-view, they could have saved 308. I don't care if Alex Pereira was the champion. 1 second. Okay, I just have to reply to a text. I don't care if he was the champion. Champions have went to enemy territory many times. Alex Pereira could have pulled a BMF move by headlining Abu Dhabi against the hometown hero. I mean, he was going to lose no matter what, but he would have been more respected if he willingly took that fight in Abu Dhabi as opposed to fighting 4 weeks earlier against the number 8 ranked Khalil Rountree. Funny how people were making fun of Hill for being salty, but look at Alex right now. He's made nothing but excuses. Where is that energy for him? They say the same way he trolled Hill, troll Alex too. Well, unfortunately, MMA fans are hypocrites. They only troll who they want to troll. They only criticize who they want to criticize. They're not fair. And they always find ways to move the goalposts. So, yeah, it's stupid. I totally agree with you, but yeah, they're not gonna troll Alex. Alex isn't gonna get the criticism he deserves because many fans love to dick ride Alex Pereira. He's a fan favorite. Jamal is not, so fans are gonna be selective, and it's BS. I don't agree with it, but that's how it is. I forgot. It's all about who we like in MMA and who we hold. And I forgot. It's all about who we like in the MMA community. We hold certain fighters with kids' gloves. Exactly. And the hypocrisy with fans annoy me so much. Because you notice in women's MMA, when an upset happens, the underdog winner gets less respect than the underdog male winner. And what's more annoying is the underdog male winner wins twice. Or proves it's not a fluke, but the female can't. Um, and then these hypocritical fans, in a way, get proven right. That pisses me off. Or another thing, I remember on my old channel, I did a video complaining about fans shitting on Rose's inactivity. When Rose was a 2-time champion, she was active. She fought like 3 times since winning the belt back. And I remember saying that nobody complained when Zhang Weili was inactive. Weili has taken 2 1-year layoffs as a world champion, and nobody had anything to say. But when Rose did it, everyone complained. When Rose took a year off after the second Joanna Jędrzejczyk fight, when she took a year off after that fight, everyone was critical. But then when Zhang Weili, when she took a year off after the Joanna fight and after the Yan Xiaonan fight, nobody cared. People didn't care if she held up the division or delayed Tatiana Swords' title shot because Weili's a fan favorite. Less people hate Rose. Everyone loves Weili. So of course she's not going to get criticism. I mean, she did get criticized, but it wasn't as harsh as the criticism that Rose received. Same way how people love shitting on John Jones for his past, but act like Conor is such a saint. The man has R word allegations. Sorry, not trying to be demonetized for crying out loud, but people handle him with kid gloves with such hypocrisy. Or even Floyd Mayweather, another guy who has domestic violence charges put against him on his record. And people hate him for it. And I'm not saying Floyd doesn't deserve criticism. You shouldn't be beating your wife. You shouldn't be doing the things Floyd or John Jones did. But like, you notice something, you notice a difference, and I kind of hate getting into this, but Floyd Mayweather, John Jones, they're black. Conor McGregor's white. Isn't it funny that the white guy gets a pass and the black guy doesn't? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And I feel like if Adesanya was white, I feel like he'd get less hate too. It is a race thing. It is a race thing. I know fans will be like, "Oh, you're race baiting," but nah, Racism in the MMA fan community is a real thing. When Dricus du Plessis, the thing is, he started this whole shit. And that's what makes it so annoying that he won. I don't really hate DDP anymore. Like, he's a very entertaining guy. I think he's funny on the mic, and I respect him, but he started this whole thing by saying that those belts never went to Africa when he was asked, as an African, asked, "Hey, Drickus, what are your thoughts on the recent fallout of the African champions, of Francis vacating, leaving the UFC, Usman losing the belt, Izzy losing the belt? How do you feel seeing your African heritage in UFC kind of falling out a little bit?" And he had the audacity to say, those belts never went to Africa, and I want to be the first real African champion who lives, trains, breathes African air. Basically saying that he will be the first African champ. He is the real African. And literally, it's on tape. Literally, after his UFC debut in Fight Island, there's footage of him saying, I want to be the first real African champion. And they try to gaslight the media saying, where did I say that? He said that. And of course, he tried to change his tone, and now he's giving Usman and Adesanya credit for being Africans, but he didn't have that energy before, and it's true. And you know what's funny? The MMA fan base immediately, as soon as Israel Adesanya got angry, and rightfully so, Izzy had every right to be upset at Dricus du Plessis for opening his mouth. They had a right to be upset at Drake, or he had a right to be upset at DDP. Maybe Izzy could have handled it a little more calmly. Maybe he could have been a little more different of how he handled the situation. But he had every right to be upset as a black man, as an African man, because black people originated from the country, or not the country, the continent of Africa. Dricus du Plessis, from his apartheid heritage, literally had no need to open his mouth. If it wasn't for colonization being a thing, DDP would not be an African. He is a freaking Dutchman born from colonization, opening his mouth, and everyone immediately took Dricus du Plessis' side, painting out Adesanya to be the villain. Adesanya was the meanie who started everything, and he was the bad guy, and all of a sudden, Dricus du Plessis gained fans that he never had before, because Izzy was being the racist bad guy. He's so mean for being mad. He's racist. When it's like, he was not being racist at all. He did not say that. He did not fucking say that Dricus was not African, but he stood on business for DDP, trying to tell him or say that, he's more African than himself, Usman, and Ngannou. He basically shat on the legacy of the first three kings. That makes me so angry. Makes me so angry. And what's more annoying is you got these fans backing it. That makes me so mad. And who fans who back Dricus on this? I mean, there are some black people, but they're coons, really. Coons who don't respect Africans or African culture. And don't respect where they came from and originated from. But it's mainly non-black people who are siding with Dricus and now claiming that, yeah, because Israel Adesanya spent years in New Zealand and traveled and lived and embraced other cultures, he's not truly African. Oh, because Kamaru Usman left Africa when he was 12 and grew up in Texas, he's now only American. Or because because he moved from the Cameroon to France, he's less African than Dricus, which is such bullshit. If you were born there, you are of that heritage. It does not matter where you moved. It doesn't matter where you moved or spent the rest of your life. Like, nobody says this about the Chinese person. If you're Chinese, nobody will say that, oh, because you're Chinese and moved to America when you were 5 and you grew up in America, no one will say that, oh, that Chinese person isn't Chinese. They'll respect them as a Chinese person. They might call them a Chinese American or a Chinese Canadian, but they're not going to say they're not Chinese at all. But when it's a black person, when it's an African, oh yeah, they're not African. That's just the logic of these dumbass racist fans. And I hate it. And I don't care what anyone has to say watching this live. You can suck it. I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to defend my people. I mean, I may not be African, but I know that's where my ancestry lies. So I'm gonna stand on business for them. And I'm not saying DDP is not an African, but he needs to respect. He needs to show more respect. He didn't need to take all the glory for himself. He could have said, you know what? Yeah, the Africans are losing. I want to redeem Africa. I want to be the next African champion. Instead of shitting on Ngannou and Usman and Izzy for living in other parts of the world, saying, "Oh, because you left, you're not African." I mean, isn't South Africa one of the richest parts of Africa anyway? I mean, I got to do my research on that. But he wouldn't have had a reason to move for a better life. Guys like Adesanya and Usman or Francis would have had to. Oh, but I know people are going to say, oh, but Izzy grew up rich and had servants. I'm pretty sure he was rich in New Zealand. But anyway, you got some dummies who would say Izzy isn't black. He's Nigerian. He's Nigerian if some type of race is clear as day. Izzy is black, and I don't know what's wrong with people. People are dumb. If people actually did research, they'd know that a lot of Africans migrated to Europe. Look at France. A lot of Africans went to these countries. A lot of Nigerians went to England, and they're still African. People don't know the difference between ethnicity and race. It's no different um, than a person's parents being from Mexico. They were born in America. They would be American, but Mexican ethnicity. Yep, I agree. But yeah, people are so stupid. People cannot erase what happened in 2019 and 2021. That was history. Ngannou and Kamaru and Adesanya, all three being belt holders, they were the first three kings, and they reigned together simultaneously. That is history. Three African champions. I don't care if Ngannou moved to Paris. I don't care if Adesanya went to New Zealand. I don't care if Usman went to Texas. They were three African champions. They put Africa on the map. Now, DDP is carrying the legacy for Africa, and I'm glad he is changing his tone, but unfortunately, his dumbass fans are inspired by his original take and they're not jumping off that. But anyway, I'm going off too much on this topic. Um, but speaking of race amongst fan bases, another thing I've always said, could you imagine if Sean Strickland was black? And I think earlier on I might have said if Izzy was white, he'd probably get less hate. I think Izzy would still be hated by fans, but fans might be less harsh with him. It might be kind of like how they treat Ian Gary, but they might be more forgiving of him. But like, for example, if Sean Strickland was black, looking at his polarizing personality, if he was black, saying the things he was saying, he would literally have no fans. People would hate him for everything he said. People would hate him for everything that he said. I guaranteed all the crazy, unfiltered things that comes out of this man's mouth. If it was coming from a black man, he'd be more harshly criticized. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do most of the blacks in Canada have Caribbean heritage, like a background? There's a lot of black, there's a lot of Jamaican Canadians, yes. Damn, I'm gonna end up like that guy who made that YouTube video on race, but I don't care. I'm standing my ground. Don't care. And just to clarify, I'm not a Dricus Duplessis hater. Like I think DDP is great. I respect him as a fighter. Um, I really do, and I do respect him as an African as well. I do think we have four horsemen, like Usman said. That's the way it should be put, and I think fans just need to be a little more respectful. Or if Jay Hill was white, he could make all types of excuses. Oh, totally. And I know Pereira's not, he's not white per se, but still, if he definitely had the melanin, he would get shat on a lot more. I wonder what's gonna happen with UFC 314. Let's just change the subject. Because I wonder which one of these fights they're gonna end up moving to the main card. Because we lost Neil versus Prates. They took Prates off the card, so that means they're gonna move one of these preliminary bouts to the main card. So, I think they just moved Dominic Reyes versus Okay, so Reyes versus Krylov's on the main card. Okay, that makes sense. I think that's a good main card worthy fight. Alex is Brazilian, but he's of the indigenous people. Yeah, oh yeah, he is. But if you look at Alex Pereira, he could resemble a Mexican. But yeah, I could see it, but I see a lot of the indigenous look in him, like the eyes and stuff. He definitely looks like a native Indian for sure. Not Indian, but like a Native American. He does have that kind of look, even though he's not American. You get the point. He does have that Aboriginal look on his face. Um, but UFC 314, I want to talk about this card. I'm gonna do a prediction video on this card very soon. I think like fight week I'll talk about it. Um, I know we talked about Chandler versus Pimblett. I want to talk about the main event though, and a few of the other fights too. But who do we got for Volkanovski versus Lopez? And I'm seeing that Volk is the favorite. I'm actually kind of surprised, but I mean, if you really think about it and what Volk's done in the division, I feel like him actually being a favorite is warranted. He is a former 5-time defending champion. He is considered one of the greatest of all time. He was pound for pound number one. Um, and Lopez is kind of yet to fully prove himself. His best win is Brian Ortega. And I mean, who doesn't beat Brian Ortega? Any top fighter beats Brian Ortega at this point. So it does make sense, but then at the same time, I thought Diego might be a favorite just because he's been more active since Volk got slept by Topuria. More fights since. He's in his prime. He's like, what, 29 years old, 30 years old. Volkanovski hasn't fought in a year. He's 36 years old. Anyone 35 plus is yet to win a championship fight in weight classes lightweight and under. I'm just saying. That is a stat that you need to be concerned about if you're thinking of picking Volk or if you're a Volk fan ahead of this fight. Just as a heads up, that Volkanovski might be toast. I don't know. I think there's more of a reason for Diego to be a favorite, but I do like that the odds makers are respecting Volkanovski. I think they should. But I don't know. I feel like if Volk was the underdog, it would make his win over Diego, if he's to win, it would make it that much more special because he's going against the odds. Like, not having fought in a year, 2-fight L streak, there's a narrative that he's done or his chin is toast. He could come back after a year, snap this L streak, derail the rise of Diego Lopez, and get that belt back. That would feel like an underdog story. But I don't think the odds really matter. I'm going to read these comments now. I'm going with Volk, and I'm going to tell you why. Diego has bad cardio. Oh, shoot. Almost spilled my water bottle over my freaking drawer. I want to do that. Anyway, let me get back to reading. Yeah, I agree. Also, Diego's going to blow his load going for a kill shot and get tired, then Volk takes over from there. If it comes down to that, I think Volkanovski's going to finish Diego Lopez. Without a doubt. If Lopez ends up in that situation he was in with Dan Ige, Volkanovski's not going to let him survive. I mean, I could see Diego gassing and then shooting for a sloppy takedown and then ending up on his back. And Volkanovski has ruthless ground and pound. It might look like the Brian Ortega round 3 sequence, except the referee steps in and the fight's done. That could easily happen, for sure. And Volk is a tempting pick. Like, I don't have a pick yet. I'm slightly leaning Diego Lopez, but for reasons such as age matters in these lower weight classes, and I'm kind of worried about Volk's chin. But overall, Volkanovski's got like more skill. His skills are better. I mean, overall, he's more better than Diego and stylistically has the advantages because his striking is better. It's cleaner. He's got better boxing, better kickboxing, better footwork, um, better lateral movement. If his age doesn't play a factor, he's faster than Diego. Um, and I think he's got better wrestling than Lopez. Now, Lopez has good jujitsu to counter wrestling. He'll go for submissions the moment you shoot on him, but Volkanovski is trained under Craig Jones. He defended every submission from Brian Ortega, which is very hard to do. So I doubt that Diego will be able to sub him. So he could wrestle, but he could also outstrike Diego. And he's got the cardio advantage. I just think it comes down to where is Volk at? Is he still that guy? Is his chin not entirely toast? And can he get through those early rounds? I don't know if Diego is going to completely blow his wad early, though, because he looked very patient against Ige. And even in round 3 against Brian, he did show some pop. Like, he dropped Ortega again in round 3, so I don't know if Volk's going to be that safe going into the 3rd round, but if it goes into the 4th and 5th, then I think Volk's got this for sure. Um, what else was I gonna say though? But yeah, Diego, even though he was patient against Ige to start the fight, he still did gas out. And he still could gas against Volk despite being patient, and here's why. Because Diego literally throws 100% into every strike, every kick, every punch. It's full power to take your head off or destroy your legs with the leg kicks. Um, and if he swings big but doesn't land clean and is yet to find that kill shot or yet to land on the button of Volkanovski, if that happens, then he's going to gas out for sure. I think in this fight, Diego not only does he need to be patient, but he needs to take at least 50 to 60% off his shots. Not go 100% right away, because if he does that, that energy bar is going to drain. And if he gasses out in front of Volkanovski, Volk is going to kill him for sure. Oh, he can definitely make it tricky for Diego standing. He's a better striker than Diego Lopez. I mean, Volk is tricky for literally anyone on the feet. Anyone. Because Volkanovski, great lateral movement. He switches stances frequently. It's hard to get a rhythm on him. Volkanovski is the master at breaking rhythms in fights. He's got a very good, well-timed jab that always lands so effectively. It stifles his opponent's offense very well. And he's good at following up behind the jab, angling off that jab, and he can land it effectively either from southpaw or orthodox. And Diego Lopez, even though he's a good striker, his overall boxing is not as good as Ilia Topuria. Like, Ilia Topuria has the boxing to deal with Volkanovski's tricky striking, whereas Diego is more of a wild card, and he's got to rely on some crazy blitz to catch Volk, and it might not guarantee him a win. Whereas Ilia is more calculated with how he walks you down and closes the distance and with how he gets in the pocket, and he strings together his combinations very well. He's very educated with his boxing. The fight I wanted was Diego versus Topuria. Me too. That was the fight I wanted to see. And it could have been next weekend too. Although I do think Volk would have gotten a rematch. If Ilya chose to stay in this weight class, I think he would have fought Volk next weekend. I would have been more confident in Ilya winning again. I think he would have. And then from there, I think Diego most likely would have gotten a title shot. And that would have been pretty interesting. I do think Lopez had a very underrated shot against Ilya. I don't think he would beat Ilya Topuria, but he does have a chance. He's got power. And one of those shots could land. He's also very good on the ground, too. He very well could take him on the ground. Or at least be a threat there. Diego is going to tire himself out trying to KO Volk. Very possible. Very possible. And another thing I forgot to mention is Volkanovski does very well against taller opponents. Like, it's usually guys who match his lower center of gravity who have the most success against him, like Chad Mendes, not really Aldo, but if you put him up against taller guys like Yair or Brian or Zombie, Max, he does exceptionally well, or even against Makhachev. So it'll be interesting to see how he deals with Lopez's height in this fight, because again, he is accustomed to dealing with taller men, but the tall guys that he did fight, they didn't have that same level of power as the Diego Lopez. But I'm not doubting Volk for sure. Like I'm going to give a prediction next week, I think. Maybe even later on this week. We'll see. If I have time, if I'm up to it, I'll do it. But I just got to kind of look over the rest of the card, do a bit of research before I get into it. One fight I'm feeling kind of stumped on is Patricio Pitbull versus Yair Rodriguez. Because Pitbull has a massive grappling advantage in this fight. Yair is very vulnerable on the ground. But does Pitbull really wrestle offensively? Like, he's got 18% takedown accuracy. Yair has higher takedown accuracy. And to win this fight, he's got to wrestle, I think. If he just strikes, I think Yair is going to pick him apart. And him losing to Sergio Pettis, a flyweight, not a good look. And Sergio does have a very similar style to Yair. Like the Pettis brothers, they got that flashy Taekwondo style of striking like Yair. So, I don't know, man. Yair, he might be the pick for this one. Yeah, I might pick him too. I think Lopez might have been the only guy to KO Topuria if they got in a brawl because he's just as powerful as Topuria. Oh, absolutely. That I totally agree. Diego is like that one guy who could really threaten Ilya in the pocket. Volkanovski couldn't, because Volk just didn't have that power to threaten him. You know, neither did Max Holloway. Now Emmett had that power, and we saw Ilya had to be very cautious in that fight. He might have had to be cautious against Diego too, but Diego is way more vicious than Emmett. I think Emmett hits harder, but I think Diego overall has better striking than Emmett and a better ground game. So he could threaten Ilya pretty much anywhere. Like when I did my nightmare matchup video for 2024 part 2, I listed Diego as one of my nightmare matchups for Ilya. And that could have been proven to be true. But I don't know. I know Volk, most people want him to win. I'm the opposite. It's nothing against Volk, but I kind of don't want him to be champion again. I think Volk had a good run, but I just want to see featherweight get shaken up. I want to see the passing of the torch. Volk already had his time. I'd like to see Diego get that belt for Lobo Gym. And also, if Volkanovski wins, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, on one hand, it will make it'll make Ilya look good because it'll show, okay, none of these other guys could beat Volk, only Ilya. But at the same time, it kind of makes featherweight look bad and Volk sort of because it's like, okay, well, Volk, you're the champ again, but you didn't beat Topuria. You only became champ again because Ilya left. Whereas if Diego becomes champion, there's a bit more mystery. I mean, there's that same narrative that he didn't beat Ilya, but I guess there's a little more openness there. It's almost like, well, then you could speculate on a what if matchup between Diego Lopez and Ilya. You know what I mean? I feel like it'd be less bad of a look if Diego could get that belt. Me neither. Do you have a Nightmare Matchup playlist on the channel? Yeah, I do. Yeah, if you go in my October post, so like in October 2024 and January 2024, I have Nightmare Matchups for champs in each division videos. Then I have some for 2023 as well. I could create a playlist, actually. But man, I felt so embarrassed because I had Amir Albazi as a nightmare matchup for Pantoja, and then he got absolutely embarrassed by Brandon Moreno, and now I look stupid because I think Pantoja would have destroyed him too. Volkov and Jelton is in the works. Okay, that's good matchmaking. I remember they were supposed to fight at UFC they were supposed to fight at UFC 302, but then they shuffled up the matches. They gave Jailton a more winnable fight. I mean, Volkov is winnable too. But then they made Volkov versus Sergey. They made Volkov versus Pavlovich for UFC Saudi Arabia as the co-main event. I'm just scrolling through my channel so I can make the playlist, and then maybe you could check it out. Um, that's a lot of scrolling. Okay, there it is. Save to playlist. I'm gonna create a playlist. Nightmare matchups, public, create. Okay, added the 2022 edition. Now I'm gonna add the 2023 edition. That one's April 2023. It's funny. I'm looking through these old videos. Leon Edwards says Usman isn't that good. Sean says Izzy isn't that good. And it's funny. You could say the same about both guys. They both suck. Okay, I'm gonna add this one to my playlist now too. Save to playlist. Nightmare matchups. No, it's not in a new playlist. Okay, that's weird. Let me check if it's there. Okay, both are there. That was weird. It seemed like it wasn't there. Okay, now this one should be easier to find because I'm in 2024. Hold on. Okay, there it is. I'm gonna complete the playlist. And I got one more video to add from October. Hold on. Okay, this is the last one. Save to playlist. Okay, Torrent. So I completed my Nightmare Matchup playlist, so you can check that out. Later, Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov is in the works for UFC 317. That should be good. Who do you got winning that fight? I think Kopylov has a pretty good chance because I don't know. Costa just kind of washed. I mean, I didn't like that last performance against Strickland, and I feel like people gave him way too much credit for that Whitaker performance because I mean, he literally stood there doing nothing, sticking his tongue out, taunting. Yeah, Kopylov might win that. Honestly, I had Aliskerov beating Paulo Costa before Paulo pulled out of the fight. I think the sad truth about Paulo Costa is he was never that good. I don't think he was that good from the beginning. I've always kind of thought he was overrated. I mean, after that fight against Uriah Hall, I remember thinking he doesn't beat any of the top guys. And okay, he beat Yoel, and then I kind of overrated him, but then I picked him. I picked him to lose to Adesanya. And then after that, I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't think he hangs with the rest of the top guys. He was booked to fight Whitaker after. I picked Whitaker, he pulls out. He was booked to fight Cannonier. I picked Cannonier, he pulled out again. And then he was booked to fight Vettori, finally showed up. I picked Marvin. And then he came back. I knew he'd beat Luke because Luke was washed, hadn't fought in years. But then his next fight was Whitaker, and I was sure that Whitaker was going to beat his ass. And that's exactly what happened. And I was also sure that Sean Strickland was going to beat him too. Although I was rooting for Costa in that fight because I don't like Strickland's boring ass. Paulo should just retire. He doesn't seem that hungry anymore. It's like his head isn't in the fight game anymore. I agree. I mean, you can just see it in the way he fights. He's not that same lion that he used to be. Like the Costa who walked down Yoel Romero. That version of Costa was a beast. The Costa who fought Hendricks, Uriah Hall, Yoel Romero, that was a dangerous version of Costa. And I don't think we'll ever see that Costa again. I think that guy is long gone. At least Turner was smart enough to get out early. Yeah, but that was sad though. I was sad that Jalen retired because Jalen Turner was very entertaining. And it's like he could have won that fight against Moicano. Like he was doing so much soul searching, asking God why the outcome happened the way it did. But it's like, dude, God had nothing to do with it. You lost the fight because you literally chose to not follow up after you dropped him. And Moicano's tough. You're not just gonna if you don't finish him the first time you drop him and you let him recover, he's going to recover. He's gonna get back in the fight. And Moicano already had the grappling advantage, and Turner missed his window. That he has no one to blame but himself. Now, against Bahamondes, I mean, he could have let up when Bahamondes pulled guard, but nobody expected Bahamondes to have a ground game like that. I think Turner was expecting to ground and pound him or something. But to start the fight, he looked good. Like Turner could have given himself a chance, but you know what? I do respect his decision. They did. They did. Two brothers with great potential and never lived up. And now Lee's getting old too, which is kind of sad. Like I remember at one point in time, I thought Lee had a very solid chance of being champion. And I remember being kind of worried for Khabib too. I remember people were saying Lee could beat Khabib because he's got the wrestling and better striking. And I'm a Khabib fan, so I'm like, damn, they might be right. But now I kind of look stupid in hindsight because I don't think he ever had a chance to beat Khabib, not in the wrestling or the striking. And then plus, Kevin Lee has bad cardio, so he would have gassed out horribly in that fight. Even if he did have early success or would have given Khabib a tougher fight than anyone else ever had, he would gas out. Khabib, better 5-round cardio, and he just melts him. Lee is only 32. He turns 33 in September. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, hopefully he could work his way back in the UFC and get a winnable fight, but I don't know. I don't know if Kevin Lee beats any top 5 lightweight right now. I kind of have my doubts with Kevin Lee. I mean, realistically, who does Kevin Lee beat? Who does he beat realistically? In the rankings right now. Let me just look. Oh, come on, scrolling is being okay. Frick, it's not scrolling. Okay, so Ignacio Bahamondes, Kevin Lee. I think Lee could win that, but we know Bahamondes is good off his back, and if it's a 5-round fight, I think Bahamondes probably subs Lee. Lee would probably gas out and make a poor IQ mistake. So I'm gonna say Bahamondes wins. Lee beats Grant Dawson. Or did they already fight before? Why am I thinking that fight might have already happened? Let me check. Kevin Lee, Sherdog. Okay, I don't think they fought actually. I don't know why that's going through my head. His UFC career. No, they never fought. He fought Jake Matthews. That's who I was thinking of. Okay. He beats Grant Dawson. He beats Benoit Saint-Denis, I think. I think he out wrestles him. And he could probably sub him. Paddy Pimblett, Paddy wins. Too much plot armor. And I know he gassed against Tony, but again, plot armor, good submissions. He'd probably show good cardio in this fight against Lee. Out cardio him and sub him. Fiziev, Fiziev does have good takedown defense, but Lee has really strong wrestling. I think it's a close fight. Very close fight. If it's 3 rounds, I think Rafael wins by decision. If it's 5 rounds, I think Fiziev weathers an early storm and rallies in the late rounds and wins a decision. Moicano, Kevin Lee wins that because I don't think Moicano offers up any threat from bottom. But Neil Dariush, kind of an even fight. I think the wrestling cancels each other out, but Neil has very solid takedown defense. I think the way to beat Beneil is you need power, and you need to be a fast starter. Kevin Lee's a fast starter, but he's pillow fisted. I don't think he's chinning Beneil. So if he doesn't, I think Beneil Dariush honestly might beat Kevin. He might school Kevin Lee. I think he might outstrike him, and he might even chin him too or find a sub. So I'm gonna say Beneil wins that fight. It just depends. If Beneil's washed, maybe Lee has a chance, but Beneil at his best probably wins. Gamrot wins. He's got the wrestling and better cardio. I think Lee could actually beat Michael Chandler because we know Michael Chandler can be out-wrestled. Oliveira showed that. I'm going to pick Kevin Lee to beat Chandler if that fight happens. Chandler's got the power to hurt him, but I don't know. Lee is he's chinny, but at the same time, he's not that easy to KO. And he's got heart, so I think he just out wrestles him the way Oliveira did. He'll use his size to his advantage, and he won't sub Chandler, but he'll just ride his back for 3 rounds or 5 rounds and win a decision. I think he beats Hooker, out wrestles him, but it's a dangerous fight. Poirier would win because Poirier's got more of a dog in him. And given how well he did against Islam's wrestling, I don't think Lee could handle that dogfight with Poirier if he's not in complete control of his wrestling. And yeah, Lee doesn't have Makhachev's defense or chin or power or level of striking, so I think he gets cooked in that fight. Holloway cooks Kevin Lee, good defensive wrestling, better cardio, better striking. I mean, Lee has the grappling advantage over Gaethje. Gaethje's always a matchup I've kind of speculated over for Kevin Lee. Like, how would Kevin Lee Gaethje go? Um, I think Gaethje would win that fight. I mean, Lee could sub him, but Gaethje has good wrestling, good takedown defense, and I think the typical American wrestling, I think those are the style of takedowns that Gaethje could defend. But if you put him up against like a Dagestani type of wrestler, then he's getting cooked. He could probably handle the American wrestling of Lee and probably knocks him out. I'm gonna say Gaethje wins that fight. Oliveira beats him again, and I think Arman Tsarukyan destroys Lee, defends every takedown, and he probably chins Kevin Lee. I think he knocks him out. And then Makhachev easily wins that fight. So much better striking, power advantage, better defense, better cardio, better wrestling. I think he subs Kevin Lee. So Lee only beats maybe two guys in the top 10, I think. I think I picked him over Dan and Chandler, but doesn't beat Beneil. Or no, he beats three. He beats Moicano, he beats Dan, and he beats Chandler. I think that's it. And then I think he beats a few other guys outside the top 10, but loses to Ignacio, um, and loses to Plot Armor Patty. And actually, no, I picked Fiziev. So I don't think he'd have a very good run if he came back to the UFC. I don't know if he would make it back to that top 5 status he once achieved back in 2018, especially now because the lightweight division from 2018 to 2025 has massively evolved. You think Moicano would win that fight? Gaethje probably beat Lee. I could see it. Yeah, I know. Lee did make his UFC return. It was against Renat. It was in the welterweight division. And he got destroyed easily. That was a stupid matchup. Why the hell would they give Kevin Lee that matchup? And have he ever fought with this? You know what? I think Lee might be done. So if he comes back, and let's say he returns to welterweight, again, I don't think he does well. I don't think he might be able to decision Michael Venom Page. You know what? I'll say he probably beats MVP because MVP has terrible takedown defense. He doesn't beat Vicente Luque. I think Luque subs him. Luque's too much for him on the feet. Luque has good takedown defense, but even if he does get taken down, he's got very good scrambles. He's got very good jiu-jitsu. He could probably find a sub as Lee's shooting for a takedown. I think he darces him. Prates sleeps him. Michael Morales sleeps him. He beats Wonderboy because Wonderboy is terrible against wrestlers. He loses to Jeff Neal because Jeff has good anti-wrestling. Colby's washed. But still, Colby has good wrestling and superior cardio. But Colby doesn't push that same pace like he used to. You know what? I think current Colby and current Lee would make for a stale, boring fight. Colby might win. Honestly, I'm going to say it's a 50-50 fight, but Colby wouldn't win as impressively as maybe 2019 Colby would. Gilbert Burns destroys Kevin Lee. Good takedown defense, good jiu-jitsu, better striking. We already saw what RDA did to Kevin Lee. I think this would be like the same fight, but easier for Burns. Ian Gary wins, better cardio, good takedown defense, better striking. Buckley shits on Kevin Lee, too explosive, too powerful, too strong, good takedown defense. JDM, we don't even need to get into that. JDM cooks him. Kamaru Usman cooks him. Wrestling too good, takedown defense too good, better striking, power edge. Leon Edwards, honestly, I think Leon wins. I know Leon hasn't been doing that good against grapplers as of late. But I think Lee would be the least toughest matchup compared to Sean Brady and Bilal Muhammad. So I think he could defend some Kevin takedowns, but I think he could also survive a lot of the ground grappling sequences against Lee. I think he could get up against Kevin. He might be able to get his own takedowns against Lee because if you remember, he was able to take down Usman, get his back. He was able to take down Colby. He was able to get to Bilal's back a few times. So I think Leon wins. Well-rounded, good grappling, just not defensively, but good offensively, better cardio, better striking. Lee's not gritty enough or pressuring enough and doesn't have great cardio like a guy like Brady or Bilal. So Leon wins that. Shavkat Rakhmonov kills him. Sean Brady, they were supposed to fight before. Brady and Lee were actually supposed to fight in 2021, UFC 264, but Brady pulled out. I think Brady would have won now, but Lee would have had a better chance. But I think Lee has less of a chance now with this version of Brady. And then Bilal, same thing. Cardio too good, wrestling too good. He cooks him. So yeah, I don't think he does great at lightweight or welterweight. I think Lee is in a tricky spot. I think if Lee is going to have any kind of chance at any kind of champ hopes, I think he needs to go to the GFL. I mean, did Lee sign with the GFL? I'm not sure. I think that might be his new home, though. Better option in the UFC. Brady destroys Lee. I agree. I think Lee needs to return back to lightweight if he comes back to the UFC. Totally. And he needs to get a right nutritionist. He needs to get disciplined so he can actually make the weight. Because his last lightweight fight was against Charles Oliveira, and he missed weight. And then he switched weight classes. But that sucks because I do think Lee is better off as a lightweight than he is as a welterweight. Yeah, Lee is with GFL. Okay, that's smart. That's actually very smart then. There might be better competition for him and he might have a better chance at winning the title, depending on which weight class or depending on who he fights. When you really think about it, bro, GFL is basically the home for UFC rejects. Yeah, GFL is basically what Bellator once was. And now Bellator is no more because it got bought out by PFL. But now PFL is doing terrible. Now everyone is going to GFL. No one's using PFL as a go-to. But GFL's got interesting matchups. Weidman versus Rockhold 2, Mousasi versus Romero, um, Tony Ferguson versus Dylan Dennis. I hope Tony can finally win. I really hope so. And then Pettis is fighting Benson Henderson a third time. Uriah Hall is fighting Douglas Lima. That should be interesting. What I like about GFL though is it's kind of like a second chance for some of these fighters, you know. Um, and also it's kind of a chance for some of these matchups that got away to finally happen. Like Weidman versus Rockhold 2 was a fight I've been wanting to see since 2016. Ever since it fell through and Bisping stepped in, I've been wanting to see that fight. And now it's finally going to happen. Hopefully, although that fight seems kind of cursed, you never know. And then Yoel Romero versus Gegard Mousasi. I didn't do a video on that fight, but that's a fight that should have happened in the UFC. But Gegard left the UFC too soon, went to Bellator. And we were kind of robbed of that matchup, and now we can finally get it. When you really think about just when you really think about it, just about these promotions, different promotions are going to sign with the UFC. Oh wait, I don't get your comment. Are you trying to say that? Like, what do you mean? I was saying a lot of talent from other MMA organizations are going to sign with the UFC because it's no other MMA organizations going good as the UFC. One championship sucks, PFL sucks, GFL is going to suck too. I see what you're saying. I mean, you got guys like Bader talking about wanting to come back to the UFC. So this actually might be good for the UFC. We'll finally, hopefully, see a lot of talent in the future making a home for the UFC. Because when we had Bellator as a problem, we had guys who could have been in the UFC wasting their primes in Bellator. Chandler and MVP finally crossed over, but they should have been in the UFC way sooner. Douglas Lima should have been in the UFC, and he wasted time in Bellator. Now he's in the GFL, and his brother, who should have been in Bellator, was in the UFC instead. We got the shittier of the Lima brothers. We lost Gegard Mousasi to Bellator because they couldn't pay him well. You know what I mean? Like, and now that Bellator is gone and PFL doesn't know how to run their business, I kind of agree with you actually. Yeah, and I hope Dakota Ditcheva finally comes to the UFC too, because she's not even in that PFL tournament. So I hope that's a sign. Because I would love to see her add to the women's flyweight roster. Like I think if she comes to the UFC, she deserves an immediate top five fight, and I think she'll be a top five fighter very soon if she signs. And she could even be a future UFC champion. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun, but I could see that being where her future potentially lies. I don't think they're going to get rid of other organizations, but I do think the UFC is running out of competition. Bellator was a match for the UFC, not PFL, not GFL, not even ONE FC. And now Bellator is gone. But I would have rathered UFC buy out Bellator than PFL buying out Bellator. Kind of like how UFC bought out Pride, bought out Strikeforce, bought out WEC, and then got all the Pride, Strikeforce, WEC fighters. I wish the same thing happened with Bellator. Some fighters avoid UFC because they pay their fighters breadcrumbs. Dana White is a dirty son of a gun. Yeah, that's annoying. Like we lost so much talent that could have stayed if Dana was paying their fighters well. And this definitely became an issue when the Reebok deal came along. Reebok to Venom, when fighters lost freedom to have their own sponsorships, they made less money. Because pre Reebok, fighters had their own sponsorships. They had Bad Boy, Venom, other kits they could wear, Nike. John Jones had Nike. I think he lost his Nike sponsorship, but still, um, Demetrius Johnson had Xbox 360 he was sponsored by. Some fighters were sponsored by EA Sports, and they were making money off their own brands. And I think if the UFC did not sign this stupid deal with Reebok, and if fighters weren't forced to wear uniforms, I don't think guys like Bader or Phil Davis or Rory McDonald or Musasi would have been complaining about money. I don't think they would have left the UFC. I think they would have stayed. I think they would have stayed getting paid well. And I think history would be different right now. I mean, I like that fighters now have more freedom with like custom designs, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same as it used to be. Not sure if you remember the sponsor shorts era when the UFC fighters had. Of course, I remember. I literally have been watching UFC for like 20 years. I've been growing up throughout that era. I remember Anderson Silva's iconic black and yellow shorts, Chuck Liddell's blue Iceman trunks, Rampage's camo shorts, Tito Ortiz's trunk fire trunks that he wore. Um, I remember it all. I remember the style of shorts John Jones wore when he first won the belt, Shogun's trunks. I remember it all, man. Those were the days. Those were the days. The golden era of the UFC. That was more fun because then it's like every fighter had their own unique personality based off the trunks they wore. And then when it got limited before, custom shorts became a thing, it just became boring. Every fighter looked the same. Every fighter dressed the same. Every fighter had to wear the same uniform. And fighters kind of lost that personality to them. Dana is such a money hungry dog. He took that away. He did. He did. He didn't want fighters to make money off their own sponsorships. but then wonder why so many fighters want more money. Maybe bring back sponsorship era. Yeah, I agree, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, the Reebok era was a 6-year deal, and I think that was a chance for the UFC to bring back. That was a chance for the UFC to bring back the free for all sponsorship era, but they didn't. They went to Venom. And then when Venom expires, they're probably gonna go to something else. Like, I don't know, Adidas, Body Armor, or like, I don't know, something. Maybe, oh no, they already did Reebok. All right. Well, been on here for a couple of hours. Um, but yeah, I got stuff to do now, so I'm gonna bounce from this live, but I'll be live again soon, and I might do videos on some of these recent announcements. Although I already covered them in this live, it'll probably be better for you guys if you also can have an individual video to look at instead of just scrolling through the live. But yeah, I'll see y'all later.